All right, welcome back, everybody. Developing this morning, the U.S. is cutting military drills with South Korea short. Those drills were supposed to run through next Thursday, but will instead wrap up this week. South Korea is one of America's closest allies in the region, but President Trump ordered cuts in joint exercises after Seoul didn't pitch in on the Iran war. The president also said the drills are hostile to North Korea, and the president is reportedly pushing his aides to set up a new meeting with Kim Jong Un as soon as this fall. This, by the way, would be their first meeting since 2019. And President Trump praised the North Korean dictator earlier this week.
I understand him. He understands me. You're doing war games. I get along with him.
Also new this morning, the U.S. military is releasing this time-lapse video of the USS George Washington. It's moving through the Strait of Malacca. That's in the Southeast Asian country of Malaysia. The aircraft carrier is on its way to the Middle East to relieve the USS Abraham Lincoln, which has been stationed there to support operations against Iran since last fall. But there's no telling when that conflict is going to end. President Trump says no new peace talks are scheduled with Iran, and he's also contradicting Iran on traffic going through the Strait of Hormuz, saying it remains open and operating. News Nation Washington correspondent Corey Smith joins us from the White House this morning. You know, Corey, for its part, Iran has said it's going on the offensive. Let's start there and how they're continuing to make good on that threat.
Yeah, Marky, while the U.S. is holding its fire, Iran is really flexing its muscle in the Strait of Hormuz. Nearly a half dozen ships have been attacked this week. And just yesterday, the United Arab Emirates says Iran fired 2 ballistic missiles its way. Now, both of those projectiles fell into the sea, but in some ways, they still did some damage. The attack led the UAE to suspend economic activity with Iran, halting all trade, commercial exchanges, and financial transactions. But Iran isn't just shooting missiles. They're firing off plenty of social media posts, essentially trolling the Trump administration. Bessent and Hegseth are way out of their league, wrote the Speaker of Iran's parliament. Stop waiting for the clown crew to pull a rabbit out of their hat and clean up the mess you made. Now, here at the White House, the president's strategy remains a bit murky. A day after confirming back-channel talks were happening between the U.S. negotiators and the IRGC, the president did a complete 180, contradicting even his own negotiators in a True Social post, writing, "There are no talks or conversations going on or scheduled with the Islamic Republic of Iran." So his optimism for a deal plummets. Oil prices are rising. Brent crude, the global oil benchmark, closed trading at about $91 a barrel. WTI, the U.S. benchmark, closed at about $85 a barrel. That's the highest prices have been in about 3 weeks' time. So while negotiations appear to be at a standstill, oil prices are going just one way, Marky, and that is up. The national average for a gallon of gas, according to AAA right now, still above $4.
And Corey, what about the economic warfare that the U.S. is waging on Iran? What more can we expect on that front?
Yeah, that was the other part of the low-key strategy the president is imposing here. Right now, the administration is putting the final touches on a new package of harsh economic measures that are meant to further isolate Iran's economy, which is really struggling right now. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said they could be rolled out as early as this week, which is why Iran is really pushing to get this deal done with Oman to regulate shipping routes through the Strait of Hormuz and potentially collect tolls that could bring in billions of dollars for Iran's economy. Now, we've been told for nearly 2 weeks now that deal is close to being finalized. But look, it faces a lot of opposition here at the White House. Remember, it was just a few days ago that President Trump threatened to bomb Oman if it continued with that deal.
Yeah.
Marky?
Things are changing quickly. Corey, thank you. For more on that, let me bring in Catherine Thompson. She's a former senior Pentagon official and a senior fellow in defense and foreign policy at the Cato Institute. Catherine, always a pleasure to have you. Let me pick up where Corey just left off right there. I mean, how harsh is that sanctions package going to have to be on Iran in order to move the needle in this war?
I mean, I think we've seen the sanctions route tried, right? Like President Trump tried it with the maximum pressure campaign in 2018. Economic sanctions are not a new revelation. We can certainly make them, more painful, but it's not anything new that's being tried. So I don't see it necessarily moving the Iranians on their biggest point of leverage, which is the Strait of Hormuz. And they're certainly, as Corey mentioned, exercising that leverage quite aggressively in recent weeks.
Yeah, and let's talk about the traffic that's moving through that corridor right now, Catherine. I mean, just 6 ships crossed the strait on Tuesday, despite, the president continuing to claim that it is open, it is operating. I mean, it's certainly not operating normally. That's a trickle of ships compared to what we see in pre-war times. I mean, you look at at the numbers here, 120 to 140 vessels is what you usually see on a typical day. What do you make of the president's characterization of, how functional this waterway is right now?
I mean, I think given the response to, that the American people are having to this war, I mean, latest polling that has come out has suggested that majority of Americans believe that, we are worse off as a result of this conflict. So I think the president is responding to that by projecting some level of optimism that the economic conditions are going to get better. But as you point out, I don't think the data is going to bear that out. And that data is going to become, all the more relevant, and you're going to be able to feel it at the pump as we're going into the midterms. And so I don't think that optimism is going to last.
From, data to discussions now, how significant is it that the president is now confirming that there are no scheduled talks with Iran? Typically the last few weeks here we've seen, the White House say we have back channel discussions going on, we have scheduled talks, and Iran is the one who comes out and says, actually, no, we don't. Well, now the president is confirming that there are no negotiations on the table. What does that tell you about where we are in this war?
I think it's a really disturbing confluence of factors. Not only the president confirming that talks aren't scheduled or planned for the future, the MOU that has kind of been on and off has now expired. And now we're in basically a stalemate, and the options for moving forward don't look that good. I think realistically, we're either looking at increased escalation, as the president has hinted at, or potentially just a stalemate, mowing the grass kind of strategy where the U.S. military is still going to be expected to maintain a hefty presence and expend further resources in the region on more of an ad hoc basis. Either way, this is not in U.S. interests long term to be sort of bogged down in a sort of more forever war style conflict. And I think Congress is going to have something to say about that here in the coming weeks.
Yeah. And one last question before I let you go, because you just mentioned the MOU. Iranian officials seem to believe that the United States is going to revert back to the original guidelines that were set forth in that memorandum of understanding before it expired. Do you agree with that?
I mean, I don't think that's politically possible for the U.S. side at this point. I think we're sort of at ground zero, given that the actual terms of the MOU were violated and didn't last that long. And that's what makes me concerned about the sort of two options going forward. I don't think they respond to sort of where the American people are at, which is not a hefty amount of tolerance for this going on much longer.
Yeah, especially a couple months before the midterms as well. Catherine Thompson, got to end it there. Thank you so much for your analysis and your time, as always, on the show.